Hi, hello, folks. Thank you for tuning into the show. My name is David DeSamaris. I am the founder of the Desert Hot Springs Cruise In, and I'm going to be here with the Desert Hot Springs Independent News as a guest host for you tonight. And the topic that we're talking on is the city ordinance that they're having go around, basically about the Roosters. And if you haven't heard about this, at the last city council meeting on Tuesday, they were talking about the city ordinance of pushing for roosters to be banned completely in the city of Desert Hot Springs. So I'm here as a guest speaker, and I'm going to be doing the show and basically talking about how I believe that shouldn't be the case. So as you can see, this is the article that we have up for the Desert Sun. So the Desert Sun is out there in Palm Springs, I believe. So as you folks may know, the Desert Sun, and this is the article as we go down. You can see it if you haven't already, that basically this is the article of the ordinance for the roosters. So the title is Desert Hot Springs moves to ban roosters within city limits, citing noise concern. So a lot of their topics, the three topics that I found on this article is basically noise, chicken fighting, so the rooster fighting, and then you have the sanitary conditions that they're concerned about. So one, with basically the roosters, there's folks out here in Desert Hot Springs and maybe folks elsewhere that you're watching the show within the Coachella Valley that you may have roosters and you may love to have your roosters with hens to be able to produce your own eggs. So with that being said, I find that this is a problem that the city of Desert Hot Springs is telling you how you are allowed to live. I think this is a problem because what is next? Are they going to take away the gardens of the community? Are they going to tell us that you can no longer grow an apple, you can no longer grow an onion? This is a great concern of mine for all of us here in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I grew up in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I was born in Indio and grew up in Desert Hot Springs. So I went to Baldwin Wells Elementary School. I went to the only middle school that was here in the city of Desert Hot Springs. So that was the DSMS, so Desert Springs Middle School. And then I went to the proud Desert Hot Springs High School. Played sports there, was involved, got involved with the youth, city council, and really wanted to be involved in my community so that I can continue to be part of this beautiful area. And I found out so much great stuff. So just to see certain things like this coming from the city, I just want you folks to be aware of it and to actually be able to grab some information. So if you haven't gotten the chance to read the article, as I've already stated, I'm gonna roughly go through it. So Desert Hot Springs City Council voted anonymously Tuesday, so the last city council meeting, this past Tuesday within this week, to introduce an ordinance that will ban roosters within the city limits. Hens will not be affected. The city previously allowed up to 6 roosters at a residence without restrictions. Residents with 7 or more roosters were required to house them in an acoustical structure from sunset to sunrise, according to staff report excuse me, I lost my space. So house them in an acoustical structure from sunset to sunrise, according to staff report by the police chief, Jim Henson. Residents have since complained about the noise from the roosters. Health and sanitation issues were also cited in staff report. And there's a quote. So this creates a public nuisance and disturbs the comfort, peace, and enjoyment of neighbors, the staff report stated. This can also negatively impact values nearby properties and the quality of life in our community. So I'm going to stop there and touch base on one of my topics. So I've grown up in the city of Desert Hot Springs, and I remember hearing roosters in this area, and you may be annoyed of it, but actually I found it to be appealing because this is a desert community. I grew up in the area feeling as if this area is an urban or rural area because we're surrounded with so much open land. To be able to hear a rooster crowing in the early morning, one of the appointed natural positions by God, alarm clocks that many farmers and people got to be able to have, in the day when the sun rises. To hear that when you're growing up, it lets you understand that you're not in the hustle bustle of Los Angeles or inside Anaheim or inside Fullerton or any sort of a big city. It lets you remember that you're inside a smaller community. And I'm sure there's probably some roosters and some hens and animals within those communities as well, but they may not be there legally or whatever the case is about that. I just knew that they were here when I was growing up, so it lets you understand that you're part of a real community. You're part of people here in this community that actually need to provide for their family or would really like to provide for their family the opportunity to have the eggs. They want to be able to know that they're growing it and it's really just homegrown and as downright homemade as you can get. So for them to say that, for one, people are complaining about it, I don't really remember and can recap that I complained about it. I can't recap that a lot of people within my schools growing up that complained about it. So for them to say that it's a nuisance and that it's gonna basically bring down the comfort, peace, and enjoyment of our neighbors is really absurd because pretty much off a little tab, in the city of Palm Springs, they used to have dude ranches. So people came out from the Los Angeles area, people came out from different cities to be able to experience our way of an urban and rural desert community, coming out here from their hustle and bustle to enjoy our way of life. So for them to come from different cities and to want to change this way of life, it's going to affect all kinds of things. Us, it's going to affect our way of life. It's going to affect people that moved here to be able to enjoy this way of life. And it could also affect our tourists that want to come in and enjoy the way of life that we have here in the city of Desert Hot Springs. And the second thing is, as well, is they're talking about the noise. It's really not that noisy. And if you want to get onto a topic of noise, then basically, what else are we going to ban? Are we going to ban dogs because they bark too much? Are we going to ban cats because cats meow? Are we going to ban birds because birds chirp in the early morning? Are we going to ban owls because sometimes they come through and they basically hoo? And are you going to ban babies because they're crying? Kids that are playing outside? Are you going to ban on Palm Drive in Pearson, since there is the fire station and the police station up that way? Are you going to ban the sirens to go off from all of those things that create noise, construction? And the point is, where do you stop this? Where do you stop the concern for the community and neighbors of disturbing the comfort, peace, and enjoyment of neighbors? I mean, it seems like if we're going to start with the roosters because they crow too much, then we should also go with all these other things. There's tons of things you can go with. Cars, loud cars, motorcycles. It's just basically limiting our way of life, that they want us to not have certain things. They want us to not have animals that will produce the food. It's too loud, and it's really not that much of a nuisance to me. So there's that. They're trying to control and change the bias and what the city of Desert Hot Springs is from what I knew growing up as a rural and urban community in a great desert environment where you have a lot of land around you, you know your neighbors, into just like how it is in all the other major cities. They want it to be changed so that it's just like how it is in Anaheim. Folks that are coming out from Anaheim that are not used to a rooster crowing are supposedly saying that it is a nuisance to the community. So there's that topic there that I wanted to briefly touch on. It's not negatively affecting values and nearby properties because, just as I said, sirens from first responders, so you have firefighters, police officers, and our paramedics, first responder services. Those do depreciate values of the home value, but a rooster, I believe dogs that bark too much or kids that play outside or cats that meow, that should be the same thing. It's not as loud as a siren, but the point is it's just as much as a nuisance in a sense to your neighborhoods, in my neighborhoods. So that would affect our values of our homes and nearby properties and quality of life in our community. So next, as I read on, at the meeting, City Council member Russell Betts said some rooster owners may be sad about the ban. And I know family friends that basically have had roosters for 70 years of different generations of that rooster within their family. It's fun to take my kids to be able to go and feed corn feed to the roosters. I had family members within my own direct family, my cousins, that had chickens and hens, and be able to feed them the corn feed and know where the food is coming from. It's just that basic, great, home down, community, homegrown feeling that you get from knowing that you have a neighbor that has chicken and hens. It's a great thing to do with kids. Kids love feeding the hens, and me as an adult, I love seeing the hens. It really gets you back into nature type feel. So I am very displeased about the possible ban as well. So that's why we're here. So quote of Russell Betts, City Council Russell Betts, but people want to sleep, and there's a place you can go buy a farm or live on a farm if you want to have a farm animal, he said. So there you go. There's another topic we can pause real fast and talk about. He's going to say, basically, any of you folks that have neighbors or family members or friends that have roosters, hens, are basically, if you want to have a farm animal, then move out of the city. They want to control how you are going to live in the city. So if you do not agree with City Council member Russell Betts, Gary Gardner, Jan Pay, or any of our City Council members, if you disagree with them, then you have to move out of the city. You are not allowed to live in the city if you disagree and would like to own your own chickens. Now, like I said earlier on in the show, where is that going to stop? If we can no longer own chickens, and it seems so illogical for the topic to be brought up, then what is going to stop? Where are they going to stop, folks? Is it going to stop with the roosters? Is it going to stop with dogs? Is it going to stop with cats? And many of you might say, well, I don't think they're going to take away my dogs, or I don't think they're going to take away my cats. They know that we love our animals. Well, that's the thing. I didn't know that they were going to bring up an ordinance that we can't own or have our roosters within our community. And it says early on in the article, you can have up to 6. In the Desert Sun's article for the news of this topic, you can have up to 6. So what about dogs? Am I allowed to only have a limited amount of dogs? Can I have dogs or can I not have dogs because they're going to be a nuisance and bring down my neighbor's property value? Where is it going to stop? I can't have roosters because a hen needs roosters. The hen needs roosters. I believe the hen needs roosters to be able to produce eggs. So if we take away the rooster from the hens, then the hens are no longer going to produce the eggs, is what I believe. So that's going to be a problem with many of you folks out there that, again, have roosters, have hens for chickens, have roosters, have hens as a part of your family. Just like a dog, a cat, and a child, a lizard, a fish, or any sort of pet, bird, that pet is not just a pet. That's a part of your family. That's a part of your neighbor's family, and it makes things a lot more enjoyable for us to be able to live in the city of Desert Hot Springs. So Where is it going to stop, folks? Where is it going to stop? And that's my concern. Are they going to only stop with the Roosters? Is that a for sure case, or is that not a for sure case? We have no actual writing of them saying we're going to stop with just the Roosters, because they said for now that the hens are okay. But when are they going to ban the hens? If you no longer have the Roosters that literally make the hens, the female counterparts, want to produce more eggs, then why would you need a hen anymore? It's going to basically take away your hens, where they're not going to lay as much eggs as you once were used to. So that's they're in the process of doing something like that, in my opinion, as I say. So that's the quote from the city council member, that if you, again, as he states there, a place you can go and buy a farm or live on a farm if you want to have a farm animal. What about a dog? Technically, a dog is a farm animal. A cat is a farm animal. We all know the children's nursery song about Old MacDonald had a farm, and there's various different animals on that farm. So the thing is, folks, where is it going to stop? So the next thing that they're talking about is cockfighting. Cockfighting was also referenced in the staff report. The city animal control has found a dead rooster with a spur attached to its leg. Okay, so they said city animal control has found a dead rooster. That only sounds like it's one, folks. It only sounds like it's one. So I'm going to bring up a tab about the roosters and when the last cockfighting has been done. So, as you can see up here, we're going to see rooster, stock car. I mean, there's just all kinds of negativity associated with our city. And folks, we need to continue to encourage each other instead of breaking each other down. I'm sorry. We shouldn't break each other down. So sorry, that's not. Okay, here we go. Reports of shots fired led to discovery of fighting roosters. And as you see here, that's 5 years ago. About 150 fighting roosters were synthesized Tuesday after being discovered near Desert Hot Springs, according to the Riverside Department of Animal Services. The birds, were discovered off Viergo Road after police received a report of shots fired, and then it goes on from the LA Times. So that's 5 years ago. 150 cock-fighting roosters euthanized. And again, that's 5 years ago. 152 fighting roosters. So it's just really off. 5 years ago, another article, 150 roosters used for fight and euthanized in California, Desert Hot Springs, 5 years ago. And then you have the KSQ news about yesterday, and that has nothing to do with the cockfighting. So, as I say, they're saying that cockfighting is a big concern about having roosters within the city. But these complaints are 5 years old, folks. 5 years old. Now, that's pretty absurd for the city to bring up issues from 5 years ago that are not happening. It seems incredible and irrelevant that we haven't pulled up any sort of new articles, folks, about anything in the recent years. So that just is, it doesn't make too much sense. So when they found a dead rooster with a spur attached to its leg, That's one. And as we found out, folks, and as we've seen, it's 5 years old. 5 years old of these supposedly complaints about cockfighting. 5 years old. They want to state about sanitary conditions. The ordinance will take effect 30 days after its second reading. So that's the Desert Sun's take on that. They're concerned about health. And let me go ahead and try to find that for you again, folks. There we go. Residents have since complained about the noise from roosters. Health and sanitation issues were also cited in staff report. Again, cited when? I know that this is the Desert Sun, but cited when, folks? Was it cited recently? Because based off of the cockfighting scenario, it seems like their sightings are incredible. It's not credible evidence that it's cited too long ago to be able to actually be something to be concerned about. So,
can I join you, David?
Yes.
All right. I'm very passionate about this topic you're covering here tonight, and I wanted to bring in my feelings on the situation. Roosters, bottom line, they can come, they can go. This is not about roosters. To me, this is about control. This is just about and every 60 day another flex of power, another move against wholesome family behavior where people just do innocuous, just simple things that just help them get by. And they're just moving against it. And most people aren't even going to know about this. And I'm going to tell the city something right now. And when I say city, I say people who have the guts to go against people who rely on this food for their sustenance. They survive on the eggs that these hens create. Now, a rooster is there to activate a hen's natural system of putting out eggs. Now, I'm going to get a little bit detailed in how the body works here a little bit, but a woman will have her cycle. Now, I don't think I'm getting very gross with this. A woman will have her cycle, and what she's releasing in that cycle are eggs. There are eggs that are flowing. For a hen, those eggs come out one a day. A hen will produce about 250 eggs per year. And it's about 365 days a year. So about 100 days, there's not an egg, and it's mixed in there somewhere. So when the hen is around a rooster, the natural chemical connection is made, and the hormone levels are different when a hen has a rooster around. So if you think that you're going to produce the same amount of eggs from a hen without a rooster, you are seriously mistaken. So what I'm saying to the city council who passed this, who live in sometimes gated communities, who drive $50,000 BMW cars, who drive $50,000 big, huge road-busting vehicles, wealthy, to-do people who can afford to buy eggs, I'm going to let you know that there are going to be a lot of people that are going to find out about what you just did Tuesday night, and I'm going to make sure it happens. And I'm not threatening. What I'm doing is I'm going to set the word out here, because what you've just moved on is, and this is where you can attack me all you want for being selfish or whatever you say about me, but for rich people to decide, for people who can't afford as much as the rich people who are sitting on city council can afford, to decide for them that their egg production in their backyard is going to change because of the noise level, which is the morning time. It's too loud to make noise at night. Now it's too loud to make noise in the morning. What's next? So you're deciding for people who can't afford the same amount of budget for food per month as you and the city council can. You're deciding they're going to have to do with less food in their backyard. It's egregious. It's disgusting. And I'm going to make sure that people in this city who voted for you are going to find out what you just did to them, what you just decided to do against them. This is a power play. This is all this is. This is about you flexing power, growing animal control, and I'm upset about this. I'm glad he's talking about this. He's staying much more calm than I am. I could be. That's why I couldn't cover it last night. I wanted him to cover it because he came to me and said, I want to talk about this. I said, it's all yours. So I'm upset, and I'm going to make sure that everybody who has a rooster and a hen, because that's the combination that has to be there to produce eggs. I don't understand how they think they can do this in the city and get away with it when all we have to do is send out the alert. Because anything can be fabricated. You can say all you want that you found one with a razor blade on the leg. You can say it all you want. There's no way you can prove that it actually happened. You can say it. Somebody could have planted it, and anybody you could get anybody in your circle to start complaining about roosters, knowing that that's going to be coming up. I mean, it's a move against wholesomeness. There's nothing going on. 5 years ago, there was a links that I pulled up here.
Yeah, I pulled those up.
You did? Okay, 5 years ago was the cockfighting issue. Nothing's been talked about this. All of a sudden they drop it on you. And from what I understand, what they're going to be doing is they're going to wait for people to complain. So that's their cowardly approach to it. They're not going to go out and seek out roosters.
One of the things I told the folks out here in the Desert Hot Springs Independent News, RJ, is basically I touched with them a lot of the basis, like you said in the beginning as well. And one of the things that I would like you to know as well, and that I already told the folks out here, is basically if they're going to stop, first off, if one noise is literally too much, then what else is? What about dogs? What about babies? What about sirens? And those are going to affect your property. But there are also things, that I tell the folks out here is what about gardens? Is a garden inside your backyard is eventually going to be a nuisance or something that the local city is going to want to control?
You know that in Palm Springs they can't run the gas leaf blowers anymore. They have to run battery pack leaf blowers. And all that does is makes the gardeners have to pay for these things are about $2,000. Did you know that?
I didn't know
They've
that.
got these little, and they don't even work as well anymore. So the noise ordinance now issue has become nighttime, daytime, and morning now with the roosters. Wow. And I've said it before so many times, and I'll keep saying it. The only way government can survive, it'll go on life support if it doesn't keep growing. So they're always looking to creep in and pass more things. But I'll tell you what, you got about 60%, somewhere roughly around there, of Hispanic people in this city who live in this city. I believe it's the majority at this point. I think if my memory serves me correctly, I could be wrong, but I think I'm pretty close. Those are people, and I have a lot of Hispanic neighbors. I have neighbors from Europe all around me, and guess what? They grew up with those chickens in their own backyards. They don't care. They couldn't care less about the noise. So this is fabricated. This is manufactured. This is a false problem. All it is, they're hoping that it just goes smooth. But I'm going to let you know, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure everybody knows about this. What you just passed last night, or two nights ago. You're right. It's what's next. But that's what I wanted to say to you. And it's just generates more business for the blowing companies. I mean, I'm so sick of this framing everything to profit off of every little fake crisis they can come up with where they can. Because everything they're doing has so many benefits for them surrounding it. They can hand off business to a faction of a manufacturing corporation that now produces these battery powered blowers, and they can lurch forward with more growth. Now they can hire more animal control people eventually. What are they going to do? I mean, are they going to house the chickens that they confiscate? They're playing possum in the beginning. They're trying to say, we're going to wait till people call and complain. But it's petty. It's really petty for them to go after this. But I agree with what you're saying about how it's what people grew up. It was the alarm clock. It's about eroding and taking away basic human activity.
Yeah. The other thing I was telling the folks out here is basically I grew up in the city. And I grew up understanding that this area is an urban and rural area.
Urban is like Palm Springs. This is rural. So I want to correct you on that.
Yeah. And I tried to talk with City Council Gary Gardner. And if you're watching the show, City Council Gary Gardner, when I was talking to you, you were stating that this is a city. This is not an urban area. This is literally the suburbs. You were explaining to me that this is the suburbs. And as I told you, and as I will tell you folks, and I'll tell you, RJ, I grew up in this area understanding that it's the desert area and people move from the city, such as Anaheim, such as Ventura, such as Fullerton and Santa Ana, and also Los Angeles. Our city is nothing compared to those cities. So this area growing up is a rural area to a lot of us folks. That's the bias. That's pretty much the way as we knew growing up, that we can have chickens, we can have any dog we desire, and now that this is suddenly coming, it's going to change it.
And get this, there's a video on my YouTube channel of Independent News Desert Hot Springs in Desert Hot Springs of a Christmas parade, and it was one where I went around and interviewed people. I interviewed the guy who does the bicycles, the BMX bicycles guy, and I also interviewed the people who came from Landers, who pretended to be Cabot Yerxa and the woman that walked with him. And what did they have with them in that parade? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
The parade, that was last year's parade.
I think it might have been 2017. It might have been. I'm not sure. It wasn't that long ago. They walked a donkey.
Oh, wow.
Okay? They walked a donkey in the parade. Anybody who's lived in Desert Hot Springs for any amount of time knows about Cabot Yerxa.
Yes.
This area is founded on farm living.
Yes.
With this is not Palm Springs with Frank Sinatra in a suit. Okay, this is we picked Desert Hot Springs because we like that about it.
Yes.
We like the freedom to do those kinds of things. And they're moving on all of that. They want to convert this to be just like Palm Springs because it's easier to top-down control. I mean, I go into those areas of it more, but for some people who are watching, we like those things about this city. We like that it's rural.
Yes.
But we're so close to those urban areas where for the evening we can go see a show. We can go walk downtown in Palm Springs if we want.
Yes.
We're that close. We're on the edge. We're mounted up against the hills.
Yes.
And for them to do this, I mean, it's kind of a goofy thing to be going on, but you have to see the bigger picture involved. And it's just really awful.
Well, the other thing is if you get towards down the Baldwin Wells area, so Baldwin Wells Elementary School, and it's called the Brownstown area, and I know about the area because that's where I grew up. Mm-hmm. I had a family residence down there, and my uncle still has a family residence down there on Buena Vista. I'm sorry. I don't exactly remember the road, so don't quote me on it, but I have family members that live down in there, and I remember growing up in that area, going to Baldwin Wells and walking to school in the mornings, and I would see a horse. Mm-hmm. I would see somebody riding a horse into town, and I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, look at that, there's a horse. And the thing is, Gary Gardner said, you can have these things outside of the city limits, but the thing is, as you would know, and if you folks don't know out there, as RJ may try to show you in many of his shows, the city is going to be growing their city limits as years continue to progress. So when you live outside in the supposedly county area, eventually, folks, you will be living within the city limits. And if you have a house, or if you have a neighbor, or if you have a fun family neighbor farm that you love to go to and see them with their pigs or goats or horses or any other various animals, it's going to be gone. Our way of life is being attacked right now.
Sky Valley will be taken over at some point too. It may take a while. It may take a couple decades, but they'll gobble that up too. They'll swallow that up. It's what they want is they want this replaced with Costco, because that's who holds the controls. Who holds the controls are the big corporations. And I shop at Costco. But can we not have some things? Do we have to all have no choice but the big corporations about everything? Because that's who's leading a lot of this stuff. It just starts to creep and creep and creep. And what choice do you have but to go to Vaughn's now for your eggs if you have to get rid of your rooster and your hens don't make it or don't produce enough? I mean, my wife has a friend up in Idlewild who she just went to visit, and this woman has hens up there on a ranch property. She has horses. She has a horse property, horse trailers, all the stalls, all the barns, all that stuff. And she has hens. She doesn't want a rooster, but she said she almost never gets eggs. She gets maybe a couple every couple weeks. That's all she has. And she has got like a half dozen hens. I'm telling you, this is going to affect your egg output big time.
The other thing that I wanted to let the folks know as well out there is that when I went to the Wednesday, not recently, but a while back, and you were there with me, RJ, when we went to the Planning Commission board, and we saw a gentleman that owns land out there, that he has land on Palm Drive. It's about 9.5 of an acre. You need 10 acres to have a parcel. And in a grandfathered ordinance from literally before the city was incorporated, there is still on Palm Drive, which is, if you look at the city map, within city limits, that is registered as rural residential. And as we seen at that planning commission board, there was a gentleman that wanted to change his rural residential land that is actually there so you can have horses, pigs, chickens, goats, and actually be a farmer there. I didn't know that growing up, so I thought that was pretty interesting, and I thought I would share that with you folks out there, because that's the thing. So when we don't know we can do certain things, they love it. The city loves to control our thinking and our way of life in a town when our living can be a lot more abundant. So the city is controlling how the Desert Hot Springs residents are going to live. And I think that's unfair.
Well, look at the city of Austin. I think it's Austin, Texas, or San Antonio. San Antonio has the Alamo. You know, the Alamo.
Yes, I've been there.
The story of the Alamo is that they tried to fend off the attack from, I think it was Santa Ana tried to fight off the attack from Mexico, and they lost. But if you go to the Alamo now, the Alamo is surrounded by high rises now.
Yes.
It's a tiny little plot now. It used to be in the middle of nowhere with land all around it. So here we are in Desert Hot Springs trying to hold on to some version of that. And the reason I said that was because what you told me a long time ago was very, it burned into my mind, and I'll never forget it, was the new Dollar General store.
Yes.
You told me the story about that property, how it used to be this little farm ranch. It used to be a historical building.
Yes.
And it was basically a big, huge slap whack across the face for them to put this corporate building, bam, right on top of what that used to be right there.
Yes.
And you can still see it on Google. If you go to Google View, you can still see that little property right there with like a little trails between the spots on the property. What was that again? What was that?
That was an Adobe Ranch.
Adobe Ranch,
So
yeah.
back in the year of 2007 and going on in 2008, I was at Desert Springs Middle School, and when I would walk up, when we used to have the Wiener Schnitzel's in town, which is across from or next to the KFC, when I would continue to walk up where the Quick Quack and the Dollar General's now, the actual family that owned that land for quite a long time built that Adobe Ranch based off of where, when you go all the way up Pearson, there's actual Adobe that you can get. That's why whenever you go to the Cabot Yerxa, they're making these new Adobe ovens and Adobe clottery pay and everything like that. That's where that ranch was actually built from. It was built from locally sourced Adobe clay for a local family that had the local ranch. And now the Quick Quack and the Dollar General sit now on historical land. So folks, I mean, they're taking away our history. They're taking away our way of life.
But at the same time, I mean, that's a clear example. This is the Dollar General being planted on your chicken coop, and, this is the corporate Costco being smashing down your chicken coop way of life. But what they're doing is what they're saying is, come to Cabot's museum, come to Cabot's Pueblo Museum, and we will show you history. You don't continue history in your own backyard. We will provide history for you. You see how it's about, we will tell you what your past was in the city. You don't get to live it anymore.
Yeah.
You see, that's it's a spiritual battle we're in. They're spiritually absorbing and taking away everything and showing you their own representation of everything that they want you. See, they want history, and they want traditional ways to be promoted, and they want those to what's the word I'm looking for? To persevere, to carry on. They want those old traditional ways to carry on, but you can't carry on a traditional way of living. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and the other thing that I wanted to let the folks know as well, that I've talked to you before, is that if you folks don't know, the city of Desert Hot Springs has now made an app that you can actually go and download from the App Store for the city of Desert Hot Springs code enforcement. And see, that's a big problem, folks. When we're complaining about chickens and we're complaining about cars and what kind of car is in front of our neighbor's house, we're bringing each other down, folks, instead of going across the street and saying, hey, how are you doing? Or, hi, my name is such and such, and you want to know what's going on with your neighbor across the street. Now, granted, yes, we don't have to butt into our neighbors' lives, but the point is the wholesome lifestyle that we have here in Desert Hot Springs. When we complain about our neighbors, and they know that we're going to be complaining about it because you know your street, you know your block of the area of Desert Hot Springs, and when we complain about each other, it brings the morale down, folks. It makes you feel like you don't want to get to know your neighbor. And when we don't get to know our neighbors, RJ, then that brings continuously the whole topic of the city is bad. Someone's going to rob you. Oh, I got to lock my door at night because I don't know who's going to steal from me. Because you don't know your neighbors and you don't know your neighborhood. And I don't want to get to know my neighborhood.
And that's what I was talking about last night in my show was about what I first saw happening in this city was I saw a cultural shaping going on, which was getting people away from talking to each other and funneling all discrepancies through this one group of people in the city, which is they're now the moderators or the mediators. They're the arbitrators. They will figure out what the problem is between you and your neighbor. How did we get along? How did we work out issues with our neighbors before they were there? We did, but what they're training everybody to believe that everything is funneled through the city. Everything is decided by what the city finally says, and it's a spiritual battle. They're taking over everything slowly, very slowly, but they have to teach you to be that way. So he's right. I mean, if I had a neighbor with noisy chickens, in the old days, what I would probably do is I'd probably work out a solution with the person, work out a soundproof nighttime coop for them, whatever you got to do. But you see, those are all those traditional solutions that are being eroded and removed by saying, funnel everything through us. And what we're going to do is we're going to fine you, we're going to penalize you, we're going to mistreat the roosters when we get them. We're going to probably put them in such bad conditions that they'll be killed. And it'll never be enough. And then we'll move against your hens someday. Because the hens will find a manufacturer reason to take your hens away. So I'm telling you, it's all creeping. Sky Valley, they'll take away all that too, if you let them. So I'm here to hope to inspire others, and I'm loving that he's wanting to do this because there's strength in numbers, and we got to get more numbers of people involved so that we can hold on to this. Because they say we want to progress, but why is the museum there? I mean, that just came to me tonight was that they want to show you how to make the clay and stuff. So they want all those traditional things to carry on, but only through them. You can't carry on traditions; they carry them on. So you got to join this fight. I'll be right back. You can continue.
Okay. So thank you, RJ. We look forward when you continue to come back.
I'll be back in a little bit.
So I thought it was pretty interesting that RJ brought up a lot of city ordinances that are basically showing us that how we can have chickens or not have chickens. So when I scroll down on the city ordinances for this topic, so when you have farm or fowl or large prohibited, so animal, so no person owning or having charge of any animal or fowl shall permit the same to be larger on any highway, street, sidewalk. So, okay, let me get down to it. So in the red, as you can see, roosters prohibited within city limit. It shall be unlawful for any person to keep or cause to be kept or to have in his or her possession or under his custody or control within the city limits any roosters. So the thing is, they are putting this now in. That's what they want. Okay, that's what's underlined now. What it was before is they actually had crowing roosters. Crowing roosters, a city ordinance. So they have it all crossed out now, as you folks can see. So any person owning, keeping, or maintaining 7 or more Crowing roosters 2 months of age or older, including but not limited to a rooster male chicken, shall house such roosters in acoustical structure between sunset and sunrise, so as to reduce the noise emitted by such roosters. So the thing is, like I said, scrolling on more, is they are cutting out all of this. They are cutting out the roosters. And if you scroll all the way down, just as RJ has talked about, you can have 1 to 6. So 1 to 6 roosters with no charge. 7 to 10 roosters, you get a fine or an annual charge. Annual charge. I kind of seems like a fine to me of $500. 11 or more, you have to pay $1,500 for your roosters. So it's a little absurd, folks, that we can't even have our own food source, our own animals, our own people, or I'm sorry, our own animals that are part of our family, folks. They're disrupting our rule, our desert way of life, and it is completely ridiculous. It seems like a nonchalant, thing to talk about, but this is ridiculous. And the things is, folks, we gotta be aware. We gotta be aware of this, and we have to understand what they are doing to us. They said one thing, and now they're changing it and saying a different thing. And it's ridiculous. Just as we said earlier, where is it going to stop, folks? Is it going to stop with roosters, or is it going to continue on? They're going to take away the hens? Is it going to stop with you can't grow carrots, you can't grow tomatoes, and then after that they're going to take away your whole garden? They are limiting our freedom here in the city of Desert Hot Springs. And I don't think that the city of Desert Hot Springs or the city officials should have the right within our free country to be able to do these such things. To say you can or you can't have chickens or roosters. So I like that RJ brought up this city ordinances, how everything was pretty much cut off. And it's just really great to be able to see that. And here's a quote that I got as I talked to City Council member Gary Gardner. So, as I quote, Gary Gardner said this: "It's not anymore." So he's saying it's not anymore as to you can no longer have the roosters, and this is no longer a small community, just as I'm telling you folks, where we know each other. So it's not a small community. It's now, he is labeling it as a city. It's not anymore. We have a lot of complaints over crowing roosters early in the morning, especially now that folks have their windows open. If you want roosters, live in the country. Just like Russell Betts said, Gary Gardner says the same thing. If you want roosters, live out in the country. If you want a dog, folks, go live out in the country. If you want a cat, go live out in the country. Because just as I told you folks in the little nursery rhyme, Old MacDonald's has a farm, any animal can be a farm animal. Any animal can be part of a community and a family that should live inside of the country. If you want to have, just like in the old 1940s era, if you want to have a victory garden, you should just go out and live outside of the city limits in the country area. So where is it going to stop, folks? Where is it going to stop? He's stating that it's too noisy. But again, where? Where do we find these articles? Where do we find these complaints?
And he's lived here for 2 years.
So he's lived here for 2 years, is what RJ said. So tell us when, all of you folks out there have grown up in the city of Desert Hot Springs, when did we have so many neighbors and people coming to school with us and saying, those dang roosters just don't stop, going and roostering themselves in the mornings, and it's such a hard thing, and I can't get any sort of sleep anymore. I've never heard such a thing growing up, and I've never heard of such a thing not too long ago in high school from fellow colleagues of high school at the senior high school of Desert Hot Springs, from people saying, I can't sleep at night, I can't do my tests well because, those roosters just keep making noise.
Well, there's two things that are going to come out of this. Either people are going to hear about it and they're going to get them to reverse it or soften it, or the people who hear about this are going to be very resentful towards them for doing this, because they're counting on nobody knowing about this. What the best way this will work out in their favor is the following, okay? Which is months to years from now. What they'll do is they'll slowly climb the complaints. They'll slowly climb them because they probably know where the Roosters are, you know, and they probably know via calls that have come in by police visits. You know, I mean, the police department, all they have to do is write a report saying, you know, describing the backyard where the domestic disturbance happened, and yeah, there was a chicken coop, there were chickens walking around. So they have an idea of where roosters are, okay, and they have an idea of where the roosters are in relation to how well they like the person that has the roosters. So as time goes on, all they have to do is slowly climb the cases of a call we got for roosters. They, you know, they can manufacture it. They can have somebody within their group call the thing in and say the roosters are annoying me, and they can pay them a visit. Animal control pay them a visit. So over the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see it slowly climb. What they need to do is they need to keep it off the radar for the next 12 to 24 months, because then when it all starts to roll out, it'll be 2 years into this ordinance change, and people will be blindsided by it, but by then it'll be way too late. So the people who have roosters, who have neighbors who could not care less that they have the roosters, they're eventually going to find out about this years from now, 3-4 years from now, when they start really moving on everybody. Because government is going to be there, they plan on being there forever. They're not going anywhere in their minds. They're here, so all they have to do is just kick it down the road, just deal with it again later. But they got the ordinance in. So what's going to really upset them, this is the other thing that's going to upset them, is if word gets out very fast about this to a lot of people. And I think I have some ways to do that. So we're going to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks. About 40 days. We're about 40 days away from it really locking in. So we're going to see what happens. It's very easy to do. And I think we should do some man on the streets about this. If you're up for it, I'd love to do it. I don't think that we'd meet a lot of people with roosters, but I think there's some things we can do. We can turn this into, and I'm thanking them for it, because I can turn a negative into a positive. And what they're doing is they're giving me situations where I can turn this around and make it benefit me. Because what they don't want me heard. They don't want you heard. They don't want us being seen out there. Because the reason we know that is because they never acknowledge that this is going on. You know, that's one of the things. They just never talk about it. Like it's the big, huge gorilla that's right there in the room, and everybody's like, what gorilla? I don't know what you're talking about. So that's them saying that they don't want any more attention drawn to this.
I think it's just interesting as well. I have a picture drawn up, folks, on Google Maps, and if this is your residence, excuse us, but your residence is actually inspirational. Yeah, it's inspirational to us. So if this is your residence,
you go on about the house.
Yeah. So just like as RJ is talking about, it's this stuff is going to be affecting our morale, folks. I mean, if we're going to be complaining about each other and tearing each other down, then how are we going to expect the city of Desert Hot Springs to get better for our youth or any of us that live here? We should be building each other up, not clicking onto the app of the code enforcement to quickly have an opportunity to complain about a neighbor that has too many cars, loud music. Where does it stop, folks? Where does this stuff stop? You know, and with the chickens, you're going to be complaining about your neighbor because he has chickens or roosters that are crowing in the morning, and it's giving you a hard time to fall asleep or stay asleep because you want to go to sleep at a certain hour. You know, it's bringing each other down, folks. And that is not a thing we should be doing in our city. We should be building each other up. And this thing is right here. The city wants to continue to bring us down. So this is a residence right here that has been here for a long time. And you can speculate because of the California flat roof style. That was a big mid-century style back in the 50s. And it has a lot of land. It has a lot of land. So if I zoom out for you folks and actually get out of this, then this is what I want you to see. So as you can see here, So this is up towards the high school. So here's Pearson. All of this land, you can see another house across from the high school. There's another house over here across from the high school as well that are on at least 2 blocks of land. It looks like about 2 blocks of land. When you see these houses right here, for you folks that may be living at the Willow Crest townhome apartments, and all of you folks living down here through these new streets, because I really didn't see these a lot growing up. So these new streets, and here's the end of so Hacienda Avenue. And look at all this land, folks. Look at all of this land right here. It's almost about 2 equivalents of 2 blocks of this person living on a piece of land compared to everybody that is living here. It just doesn't seem fair. This person right here, probably in the 50s at the time, probably got this residence so they can be outside of the city limits. And now, here's the city limits coming to swallow them whole. He wanted to have his land. These families up here wanted to have their land as well, outside of the city limits, because if you continue to go a little bit east, when you get to Buena Vista, and you get to the park area, and all this, this is the city area. So you have all of this, which is the older city area. And way outside of the city area, then you have these folks that want to have more land. They don't want to be crammed next to each other. And I think it's just not fair that they want to continue, for a side note, to bring more land development. I encourage you folks to, yes, live here, but get some land. Go out and get yourself some land so you and your family can breathe. This is what our area is known for. This is what I encourage, that you folks get out there and you get to actually have some land instead of being squished like sardines into the same amount of land that somebody owns. It's baffling that one family owns as much land that all of these families live in. It could be about 15 families or so, or more. And that just seems absurd that all these families would rather not live in abundance on land that is that big. That some families want to take away roosters because they're annoying certain peoples, when the rest of you out there want to have the freedom to be able to have your roosters. That some people want to pass the ordinance where you can't have a car that's certain loudness, and when other people are proud of their car, when other people are going to be, having parades, and what are we supposed to do? Pass an ordinance where we can't have parades because it's too loud? It just seems odd to be able to pass these things when there's literally the same amount of land, and somebody owns in this as the same amount of land of these people own here. And I just think it's odd. I mean, what's your take on that, RJ, about this whole thing that I'm bringing up?
Well, I think that we're headed, in Desert Hot Springs is headed to look like San Antonio around the Alamo. The only thing historic will be swallowed up by a bunch of corporate owned, structures that, and it'll resemble nothing like what Desert Hot Springs originally looked like. Now, I'm careful to say that because I don't want to say I don't want progress, and I'm not interested. What I'm saying is there's a clear shift happening, and they're doing away with what what this city was founded on. I mean, even if you look at this map, I'm sure that if there were people that lived here 75 to 100 years ago who looked at this map, they'd probably fall over in shock of what this looks like. So just imagine how much more tighter it's going to get when, if you zoom out and you look at the area, there is so much abundant open area around here, so that they're compacting it all into the city. And I don't know. I think that families need room around them.
Yes.
They need room they need space to go. And I mean, what's next? Blythe? Is Blythe going to be, a high density housing going in there? So it's like, the past has to be preserved, not just by government, because they won't preserve it. They'll say they're preserving it, and they'll trash it, and they'll tell you a false version of what history was. The people have to actually go out and fight to preserve what they know is a good feel. It's what people grew up having, which is a backyard to play in, and and having chickens, having goats. I mean, they took away goats.
There's a lot of change going on here, RJ. I mean, as you can see in the Google Maps here, they're already starting on that high density housing, just as you said, out there across the 62. And eventually, folks, they want all of this to be city limit. That's what they want.
It is part of the city.
Yeah.
But they. What the city looks for is the city looks for any opportunity to have a project within the city, because then they can get the funds for it.
I think it's, not to cut you off, but again, folks, I think it's just really unfair for the people that live out here towards the west side of Desert Hot Springs. A lot of you folks moved out there because you didn't want to be part of this typical city life where you're packed in as sardines. Now, folks, come on. We're bringing our city life to them. It's not fair, folks. It's not fair.
I wanted to show you something that I just pulled up and sent it to the email here. This is no, it's not that one. Click inbox again. Here it is. This is a Google search, and I do custom searches. You can go over here to tools and you can type in. See, I typed in from 2012 to 2013, because if you type in city to ban, if you do a search on city to ban, but if you leave it without a certain date range, then you'll get everything about plastic straws now, and you'll get other stuff going on now. So if you go back to a certain time period, look at all the things that the cities across the country have taken over control over. Coffee cups and takeout containers, single-use carry-out bag ban. Should cities ban plastic bags? Bloomberg plans to ban large sugar drinks. Health board, Bloomberg soda ban, plastic carry bags, and fur ban, banning fur. I mean, you can have.
Wow.
It used to be that if you didn't like that something was made of fur, you just didn't buy it. Now the cities have now taken a step into it, and they've said you can't sell it. So it's bigger government. I mean, something like 70 million people are employed by the government. I think it's some ridiculous number. And what do you get for it? You know, the plastic straws now are paper straws. I mean, nobody buys this stuff. I go into the stores where you have to buy the bags, and I say, pretty sure this is going to save. This is it. This is all we had to do was just ban these plastic bags. Now we're good. And they're like, no, we're not. This is a total stupid joke. So people don't buy it. But the point is that most people put up with it and they don't speak out about it. I speak out. And I'm hoping that you are too, to inspire more to speak out. Speak out. Speak your mind. If you have nothing to lose, do it. Is only inspiring other people to do more of it. You go on Facebook, there's every fifth or sixth one is somebody sitting at their own screen, at their own camera, making a video. Go make your own stuff. Talk about this stuff.
So it's absurd, folks. Just like he talked about. When is it going to end? They're going to ban Roosters. Many other towns have banned plastic bags, straws, and I'm sure many of you out there will be talking and say, well, that's important. But the whole bigger picture that we're talking about is that the city is saying what they want you to have or don't have. And that's not the American way, folks. If you don't want fur, then don't get it, just like RJ says.
Here's the city of Saginaw, Michigan that got involved in banning hunting,
Wow.
I mean, where does it end? I mean, we know that we're not going to stop the freight train, but we can sure slow it down, or we can maybe reach the driver who's driving the freight train and get some information to that driver. Maybe get the driver to stop the train. You can't stop the train by grabbing onto it, but it's just too much. It's too much, and this one in this city on Tuesday was just. It's really bothersome, because if you let them get away with this, they're gonna come after Desert Hot Springs. They're gonna ban bags at some point. They're gonna ban the plastic bags, or they already did, right?
It's the whole state of California that banned it.
No, it didn't. You can get them at Home Depot in Rancho Barrage.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I think the city did ban those, but the bans are just another periodic exercise of. See what we can tell you can't do now?
Yeah.
It's just an exercise of power. And if you allow them, shame on you.
And the other thing is that RJ talks about as well, that he encouraged me to know, is that they don't like us wholesome people to band together, folks. The city does not like a large amount of group of people together, because that is offensive to them. It worries them. It scares them. So many of us banding together to be proud to live in Desert Hot Springs, to be proud to live in a desert. I mean, when I lived in Desert Hot Springs back in 1995, when I was a lot younger, there was barely the Kmart coming into town. We used to have a BMX track where the Guy Didesco Park is now, and where they have the concrete bike park now. It used to be a BMX, and we used to have a hockey ring where the basketball courts are at now. So the thing is, folks, there's a lot changing. There's a lot changing that the youth really doesn't even, they're not even aware of, where they get to say or not get to say. A lot of times when there's a park going to come in, we can't even maintain one park. You know, why should we have another park? It's just things like that, folks. There's stuff changing about Desert Hot Springs, not really in a good way. And again, we're not against progress, but I am against when the city is going to shove something down our throat that we don't get to have a say about. It's either you like it or move out, like they like to say. If you don't like it, move to the countryside.
Well, that's what's going to happen is that there are some of us who ultimately won't put up with this, and we'll move to where we can have these freedoms. But what's going to happen is if you are concerned about this stuff progressing and you don't speak out about it, don't be surprised if in 10 years you're surrounded by a bunch of Los Angeles people who have banned everything from you in Desert Hot Springs. By you staying quiet, you are basically complying with what they're converting Desert Hot Springs into. They're converting the city into another colony of Los Angeles, another colony of Palm Springs, and you will have lost all those freedoms that Desert Hot Springs provides now, and it's slipping away. Because again, some of us won't hang around, but we're here fighting now while we have a chance to inspire you to fight with us, to say we want Desert Hot Springs to stay the gem that it is, the way that it is, the rural feel that it has, the one main road feel that it has, the small shops feel that it has, the community feel that it has. They're going to eat you up. They're going to make you into another big city if you don't stop, if you don't get on board and start doing some stuff.
I like that. I like that RJ talked on top of it, because as a lot of you folks know from the Baby Boomer generation, you probably remember Anaheim was probably just like Palm Springs is now, but Fullerton and Buena Park and Colton and Rialto, all these areas. I was reading a book recently by Albert Okra. He's called The Chicken Man, and he actually owns the town of Amboy. And when he was over there in the Ontario, San Bernardino area, he remembers going through that area, and it used to be just a bunch of, literally Ontario used to be a bunch of orange groves and farms. Mm-hmm. And when he went through that area, that's what it was. That's how Orange County is. That's why it's called Orange County, because of the orange groves. When you went through Moreno Valley, it was a bunch of orange groves. And what happened ever since the 50s, going all the way up to now, all the people came from Los Angeles, going into your small communities that you remember growing up, filled it up, where you no longer can own land by parcel, but by tiny little lots, and then it got too expensive, and it overflowed, and it overflowed, and it overflowed. It's kind of like you got pot setting inside of a fountain, and it just goes from one thing to one thing to one thing until it's all full.
Cascades from one to the other.
You know, so it's just, you know, you folks that probably moved out here from that city area probably moved out here, just like RJ said, because you love this area and how this area is different, more inexpensive, more family oriented, more room to wiggle around and say, I can have a garden, my kids can ride a bike in my own land, I can have 12 trailers. You can have an abundance of living out here compared to where you came from. Things are cheaper, it's more affordable. It makes California, again, fun and a great place to live and grow a family. But when we continue to let these people come from these cities and tell us, the ones that have grown up here or moved here, to love this area for what it is for, we are going to lose the charm that Desert Hot Springs is known for, folks. We can't be lumped into the rest of the Coachella Valley and say that's going to solve the problems. Desert Hot Springs has its own beauty at night. You have beautiful trails to hike. You have beautiful buildings and places to look at. We have a beautiful downtown that I still encourage you folks to go out there and own your own business instead of having to work for people. But if that is your way of life, folks, if you want to work for people, then that's your decision. But I encourage you to open up your own business. I am in the works as well, would love to own my own business. Yeah, they may say, you know what, it's going to be hard. It's like running your own business or starting up your own business, and it's going to be difficult. You work more, get paid less. But you know what, folks, at least we're doing it for ourselves and our community. So that's the thing, folks. We got to understand that the city of Desert Hot Springs is controlling the narrative. They want us to live a certain way, the ways that used to be for Desert Hot Springs. They don't want it to be that way anymore. They want it to be cloned, just like Palm Springs, just like Palm Desert, just like all these areas. And if you go over into Palm Desert, folks, when you get there, you get to know about the local history. And I found out, I don't know if it's true or not, but in Palm Desert, they were actually anticipating that Palm Desert would grow as it is now. Desert Hot Springs, you can't quote me, but as I feel living here, folks, it seemed as if people wanted it to be just a rural urban area. And I say seemed because when I go in to clocking into actually looking into the local history, there was no such documents where any of the town in 1958 or 1960 were anticipating that the town would grow as we know now. Just like we talked before with the Adobe Ranch that is on the area as Quick and Dollar General, that was a ranch. That was an Adobe Ranch there. I remember that walking up Desert Hot Springs, going up Palm Drive from going to the only middle school that was here in the area. And like I said, I'm not against people moving here, but folks, we got to understand that when we take people from Los Angeles and let them change this area, that is not okay. I would not like somebody coming into my house and saying, well, you know, the couch that sits over there, let's move it over here. Oh, well, your kitchen, let's tear that down. Let's turn that into a restroom, and let's go ahead and put your kitchen over here, and let's make it a little bit smaller. And they don't even live in my house. That doesn't seem very fun, folks, for people that don't live here to actually change it in a not so great way. It's really unfair to be able to do this to all the people that grown up here and love this area for the particular reason that many people have moved here for.
Well, I don't want you to sound like you're not welcoming people from Los Angeles, because I don't think that's a fair thing to say, is that people from Los Angeles can't come here and imply what they're into. The point I'd like to add, which I'm sure he'll agree with, is that if you let them be the loudest voice in your city, they will convert it to the way they want to see it. So if you're just sitting there and just letting it happen, he gave you all these examples of where it already happened. It took rural areas like Rialto and turned them into what they are today, which is not what I'm sure a lot of original Rialto people moved to Rialto for, was to have it converted to a version of a moderate-sized city. So Desert Hot Springs, of course you want it to grow, but if you don't speak out for the traditional things that you want to keep going alive in Desert Hot Springs, which if you speak out, enough people speak out, it will hold on. It will hold on to those things. There's unlimited possibilities of how a city can evolve. If you just sit back and just let them do it the way they want to do it, then they're going to make it like every other cookie cutter big city that is transformed from the rural feel of city to a big city. So that's all I'd like to say is welcome the Los Angeles people, but if you see what they've done in other cities and you don't want that to happen here, you better get active.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I want you folks here from the Los Angeles area, but we got to be able to do it in a select amount of numbers, so we can allow all of people the equal opportunity of abundance of life in this great area. You know, if everybody moves to Honolulu, Hawaii, then nobody's going to continue to live that experience of a beautiful island. If we all love Idlewild up there in the mountains, then we all decide to move up there. It's not going to continue to keep it as that quiet little sleepy town. Like again, I'm not saying don't move to Desert Hot Springs, but I'm saying if we allow these city people to do just like as RJ said, to change it, and we sit back and lay our hands up and say, oh well, you know, we can't really do anything, then it's going to be changed, folks. So, you know, that's a lot of it. And again, you know, I'm the founder of the Desert Hot Springs Cruisin'. It's a community building event that happens every Wednesday. The spark of it is to get the youth involved, to get people involved with their vehicles. I've opened it up to all types of vehicles, so no longer domestic vehicles, but Hondas, Toyotas, everything. I'm encouraging people to come together with their vehicles in a great family, wholesome environment to encourage us folks to make more weekly events. You have Palm Springs that has a lot more events, and they have their Thursday night Village Fest that happens every week, and that brings the morale up, RJ. I believe that really brings people together of why they love to go to Palm Springs. Yeah. It brings business to the downtown of Palm Springs, which any day of the week, any day throughout the whole rest of the year, it makes the city of Palm Springs just a nice place to go and get a cup of coffee and walk down their downtown. And that's something that I encourage.
I didn't know you opened it up to just any car now. That's awesome, because any line of cars that all have their hoods up, you could talk about anything. Like I have a Toyota, one of my cars is a Toyota, and Dean Hanks, who does the smog checks down at Mike's Motorsports, I asked him, I said, why is there so much space in front of the engine, behind the engine? He said that's for the robots to put the engine in. I mean, I'm not going to go back and turn the robots off, but it's interesting. There's something under the hood of every car that there is to talk about. You can talk about, you know, things you want to get done. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know it opened up to any cars, because I have a 76 vehicle, but most of the other cars are in the 90s.
Yeah, we encourage people at the Desert Hot Springs Cruisin' to bring domestics because of the historical value about it, because we used to host the Desert Hot Springs Cruisin' up there in Pearson Boulevard, and we want people to remember to keep that area historical. Just like Palm Springs has their mid-century buildings, and they look to restore the buildings, not tear them down, reface them, and change it into something else. And that's what the city has done to part of the area. Yes, the buildings were worn out and they've seen better days, but I believe we should have restored the buildings instead of tearing them down or refacing them and changing them into what looks like a new building. We just lost history there, folks. So in the Desert Hot Springs Cruisin', it's variable reasons. We want you to have a domestic vehicle down. We want you to be able to know the history. We want you to know to come down and be part of the community. We want to grow more weekly events. And again, now we open it up and we encourage all vehicles now, not just domestics, because we want the community to understand this is a safe environment. It's a wholesome environment. It's where we get to be unashamed to talk about God, unashamed to talk about our town, unashamed to talk about our vehicles,
coffee,
get
whatever.
help.
Burgers, whatever.
If you need help, on your vehicle, you're saying, hey, I got a problem with my Mitsubishi or my Ford. You get to know from people, oh, how did you do this? How did you change this engine from this engine to engine? How did you solve the braking issue that's on this car? You get to know information, and you get to build up friendships. It's a community building event to let our youth know and our residents that are adults know that there's something fun to do in the middle of the week.
Sounds like the same thing people would do if they had a noisy rooster next door, is they'd talk about it, right?
Yeah.
They'd get together across the fence and they'd talk about it. Just like in the parking lot for the Cruisin'. You just stand there and you talk about stuff. What's wrong with that? I can't see anything wrong with that.
No, that's what we encourage. We encourage people to build each other up in Desert Hot Springs. We're not trying to tear each other down, but we need to build each other up, because we got so much negativity already facing us all that live in Desert Hot Springs, folks. We already know it. And why do we need to continue to build or just tear each other down within our own community? It just seems odd. It really seems odd when we got so much negativity against us already to continue to hurt ourselves.
Agree 100%.
Yes.
Want to wrap up?
Yes.
Did you get any more points that you didn't talk about? You want to briefly go over, or did you cover everything?
Well, we covered everything,
Okay.
you know, and we had the city council video. If
They can find that on YouTube.
so, you
Yeah.
can find that on YouTube. It's about 2 minutes and 28 seconds.
No, 2 hours, 28 minutes into
2
it.
hours and
Yeah.
28 minutes
Item
and
number
25
7 is an ordinance
seconds.
amending Title 6 of the Desert Hot Springs Municipal Code to prohibit roosters within city limits. Chief Henson.
Yeah, it's right here. So you can pull it up. You can watch it right there online. So yeah, you did great. Congratulations.
Yes.
You can come back and host anytime you want about any subject you want to talk about. So
Yes.
weekly, monthly, whatever you want to do. It's
Yes.
great. This is this is going to be a great video. You know what this is about? This is about showing, and this one we're gonna promote this one all over the country. This is a good one for all over the country. You know why? It's because it's not me. It's a resident in Desert Hot Springs, and they try to say technically you're not in Desert Hot Springs,
Yes.
but we debunked that totally. It doesn't matter. I can talk about Portland, Oregon if I want. If I'm concerned about what they're doing in Portland, Oregon, I can talk about that all I want. This man can talk about Desert Hot Springs all he wants, about the direction he sees the city going. So what this is going to be is this is going to be a great reach out of advertisement about showing the people in Desert Hot Springs and the passion for Desert Hot Springs. Why? Because somebody in somewhere in Montana, in some small town, might come across this video and they'll say, you know what, that's inspiring. That's good. He's standing up for his city. He's saying something. He's speaking out against what he feels is an injustice towards wholesomeness, towards natural way of life that we were founded on by God, by giving us these creatures that aid us in surviving. He's speaking out against what they're doing in his city. I'm going to take his example and I'm going to do something in my city, or I'm just going to feel good from seeing what he's doing in that city.
Yes, we got the next 30 days or so, and if that's correct, we got 30 days or so, folks. And I encourage you folks out there to band together. Contact me on Facebook, or go ahead and contact RJ. And I would love to have you folks get together for us for the next city council meeting, so that we can show our elected officials, our honorable city council members and mayor, that we do not agree with this topic, and we are going to go there and show them that we do not agree. They think that we're going to just go ahead and pass this quietly, and they're going to go ahead and pass the ordinance, that it's not a big deal. But folks, it is a big deal. It's a little thing. The little things in life matter.
And I want to point out that if nobody else shows up at the next city council meeting, it doesn't mean that a lot of people haven't found out about this. So I'm just letting you know right now.
So, folks, we got to do this. We got to really let them know that, we do care about our city. We do care about how it was, and we want to keep it that way, so we still have that wholesomeness, just like we talked about. So, again, thank you for tuning in to Desert Hot Springs Independent News. My name is David Dismaris. I am the founder of the Wednesday Desert Hot Springs Cruise-In. We do it at the Cars Junior, just like people used to do in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and we're encouraging more events to happen. Come out to our event and talk to us. Let us know how you are doing. Tell us a little bit about your fun toy car that you got, and look forward to seeing you folks. Thank you very much.
Excellent job, David. Thank you for watching.